The desert is a vast, quiet place, stretching under a fierce sun. Here lived Abraham, an old man whose wealth could not fill the ache in his heart. He and his wife Sarah had no son. In this land, a son meant a future, a legacy. Without one, a man's story ended with him. Abraham prayed, listened, and waited, believing in one God who had called him to this land. One day, a promise came, not a voice, but a certainty in his soul. He would be the father of a great nation. His children would be as countless as the dust beneath his feet. It was a promise so impossible, it could only come from God. Abraham clung to this hope, letting it shape his days and give him strength. He looked at the swirling dust and saw the faces of generations yet to come. The promise became his companion, his purpose. He did not know how it would happen, but he believed. He trusted the one who had made the promise. In the heart of the silent desert, that trust was everything. The sun, the dust, the wind, all bore witness to a hope that refused to die. Abraham's faith was not in what he could see, but in the God who sees all. And so, in the vastness of the desert, a story of faith began. The promise was planted in the dust, and Abraham waited. Desert nights transformed the world. Stars blanketed the sky, countless and brilliant. One night, God called Abraham out of his tent. "Look up, count the stars if you can, so shall your descendants be." Abraham stared upward, overwhelmed by the impossible vision. The promise was renewed, brighter than ever. And then the miracle Sarah, old and barren, gave birth to a son Isaac, meaning he laughs. Laughter filled their home, joy they thought they'd never know. Isaac was the living proof of God's faithfulness, the first star in Abraham's sky. Abraham watched his son grow, teaching him about the land, the flocks, and the God who gives life. Every moment with Isaac was a gift, a daily reminder that God keeps his promises. The boy's laughter echoed the laughter of his parents, a sound of hope fulfilled. Abraham's heart was full. He had everything he had ever wanted. The promise was no longer just a dream, it was alive, running and laughing in the desert dust. The stars above were now a symbol of a future that had begun. Abraham's faith had become sight. The impossible had happened. The story was just beginning. Life found a peaceful rhythm. Work by day, laughter by night. Isaac grew strong. The promise made flesh. Then, one night, the voice came again, not with hope, but with a command that shattered Abraham's heart. "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering." The words were clear, each one a wound. The God who gave the promise now asked for it back. Abraham did not argue or plead. Silence fell, a silence heavy with pain and confusion. Every part of him screamed in protest, but deeper still was his faith. He remembered the God who had given him Isaac, the God who had kept every promise. Abraham could not understand, but he knew the one who was asking. In the darkness, with a broken heart, Abraham chose to trust. The future was suddenly uncertain, the promise in jeopardy. Yet Abraham's faith, forged over a lifetime, held firm. He prepared to obey, not knowing how the story would end. The test was beyond comprehension, but Abraham's answer was simple. Trust. The night was long, but faith endured. The promise and the pain walked side by side. Abraham's obedience would be the measure of his trust. The journey into the unknown began. The terrible whisper echoed in his soul. Before dawn, Abraham rose, silent and resolute. He did not wake Sarah. Some journeys must be walked alone. He saddled the donkey, called 2 servants, and woke Isaac. The boy, innocent and trusting, followed his father into the unknown. For 3 days they traveled, the silence heavier than the desert sun. Abraham's mind was a storm of love and obedience. Isaac, unaware, trusted his father completely. On the 3rd day, the mountain appeared. Isaac asked, "Father, the fire and wood are here, but where is the lamb?" Abraham's heart broke, but he answered, "God himself will provide the lamb, my son." The words were both prophecy and prayer. Together they walked on, into the shadow of the mountain. The silence spoke louder than words. Each step was a surrender. The journey was nearly over. The test was reaching its peak. Father and son climbed side by side into the unknown. Faith was all they carried. At the mountain's foot, Abraham left the servants behind. "We will come back," he said, a statement of faith. Isaac carried the wood, Abraham the fire and knife. The climb was slow, every step a battle between love and obedience. The mountain was barren, the sky vast and silent. Abraham's heart warred within him. Was there another way? But the command was clear. This was the ultimate test, trust beyond reason. They reached the summit, a lonely rocky clearing. The time had come. Abraham looked at his son, the promise embodied. He had to surrender not just Isaac, but his own understanding. Trust in the darkness, in the silence, in the impossible. The mountain waited, the sky watched. Abraham prepared to obey. The moment of decision had arrived. Faith demanded everything. Abraham was ready. Abraham built the altar, each stone an act of obedience. He arranged the wood, his hands heavy with sorrow. Isaac watched, trusting even as confusion grew. Abraham bound his son, the one he loved, and laid him on the altar. Isaac did not resist. His trust mirrored his father's. The agony was beyond words. Abraham reached for the knife, his hand trembling. This was the point of no return. He had given up everything, his reason, his future, his heart's treasure. In that silent moment, Abraham's faith was made complete. He had held nothing back from God. The knife was raised. The world seemed to hold its breath. Surrender was total. The promise lay on the altar. Abraham's eyes closed. His hand was steady. He prepared to bring the knife down. Faith had led him to the edge. As Abraham's arm moved, a voice thundered from heaven. "Abraham! Abraham!" He froze, knife in hand. "Here I am," he answered, hope and fear mingling. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know you fear God, because you have not withheld your son." Relief crashed over Abraham. He lowered the knife, tears streaming. He untied Isaac, pulling him close, overwhelmed with gratitude. The test was over. The promise was alive. Father and son wept together, joy replacing agony. Then Abraham saw a ram caught in a thicket. God had provided the sacrifice. The ram would take Isaac's place on the altar. It was a sign of grace, a gift of life in place of death. The promise was not just restored, it was redeemed. Abraham's faith had been proven true. The mountain echoed with the sound of deliverance. God had brought them to the edge, but had not let them fall. The substitute was given. The story of faith had a new chapter. The God who tests is the God who provides. The future was secure. With reverence, Abraham sacrificed the ram, his heart overflowing with gratitude. The smoke rose, a symbol of faith tested and found true. Abraham named the place Jehovah-Jireh, the Lord will provide. The mountain became a monument to God's character. God is not a taker, but a giver. He tests, but he also provides a way through. The ram was a picture of grace, a hint of a greater sacrifice to come. The angel called from heaven again, blessing Abraham for his obedience. The promise was renewed and expanded. Descendants as numerous as stars and sand. Through Abraham's costly faith, all nations would be blessed. The reward was not just Isaac's return, but a legacy for the world. The story of the mountain became a proverb for generations. When all seems lost, remember, God provides. The altar was no longer a place of loss, but of blessing. Abraham's surrender became the foundation of a nation. The God who provides had written his name in their story. The sacrifice was complete, the blessing given. Abraham and Isaac stood together, peace settling over them. They turned from the altar and began the journey down the mountain. The silence was now filled with understanding, not dread. They had faced the impossible and seen God's provision. Side by side, they walked home. Changed forever, words were few. The experience spoke for itself. Isaac carried the memory of the altar. Abraham, the reality of faith proven true. At the mountain's base, the servants saw them return, just as Abraham had promised. The journey home was different, the landscape unchanged, but their hearts transformed. They carried a story, a legacy of trust. The binding of Isaac became a cornerstone of their people's faith. The path of faith is not easy, but it leads to God's presence. Abraham and Isaac returned, bearing the seed of a nation. Their story would echo through generations. The mountain had changed them. The journey of faith continued. The story of Abraham and Isaac is more than ancient history, it's a lesson in true faith. Faith is not loud, it's the quiet obedience of Abraham rising early, walking 3 days, building an altar. True faith holds on when logic and emotion say let go. Obedience is costly. God asked for what Abraham treasured most. The price was high, but the reward was greater. A son returned, a promise renewed, a blessing for the world. The heart of the story is surrender, letting go of our own plans and trusting God completely. In surrender, God meets us and provides. Jehovah-Jireh, the Lord who provides, is revealed when we release control. Abraham's legacy is not perfect understanding, but perfect trust. He is remembered as the father of faith because he obeyed without all the answers. His story reminds us our own journey will have mountains and altars. We are called to trust when we cannot see, to obey when we do not understand. If we surrender what is most precious, we will find God faithful. The promise endures. The God who provides is still writing stories of faith today.